How did you decide on your career path? I joined my high school play. I was a huge introvert at a new school with no real friends or a place. Theater turned me into an extrovert. I loved it. Now I audition for Broadway shows. Hopefully I'll get a gig soon, and I've already been in several national tours. I always wanted to make video games since I was like 7 or 8 because I loved playing them and dissecting how they worked in my head, and I was determined to have a career in a subject that I had a personal interest in, as the idea of working in something I didn't care about for my entire life filled me with existential dread. So from that age, everything I did academically was aimed in that direction. The reality isn't perfect. The industry is very different now, and it's nothing like the romantic vision I had in my head as a youngin', but hey ho, it's alright. I was on benefits, and not allowed to study further, supposed to look for work. Tried it a few months but nobody wanted a high school diploma kid. Said frick it, and enrolled in social worker school, the very last day. Did 2 months of classes, before I had a checkup from the welfare office. The lady there was sympathetic. I graduated in 3 years with my bachelor. Only chose social work because I have no math, physics, etc. skills. Only soft skills. Turns out it's the job I'm made for, so all is good. It was an accident. I meant to be a doctor because I had a parent in the medical field and that's what smart kids did, right? Applied to all the colleges with a medical school in a 3-hour radius of home. My best offer was at a school that offered me a full ride for 4 years, or for 5 years, if I did their combined bachelor/masters in engineering program. Thought sure, why not? An extra year of school and a degree for free. Chemical engineering had the most overlap with med school prereqs, so that's the degree I chose. Had no effing clue what a chemical E did. Or engineers in general, really. Nobody I knew was an engineer. Just thought it would make my med school application more competitive. Fast forward 2 years, and I'd already given up on the med school idea. I loved engineering, the logic, the problem solving, and no way was I gonna do 7 to 12 more years of school when I could graduate in 3 making $75 plus. I've been working as an engineer for 1.5 years now, and I still love it. I solve problems, fix things, and analyze data for ways we can operate better. I make our operators' lives easier, and I work with them to make our plant a safer place. The industry has come so incredibly far even in the last 10 years in terms of safety and sustainability, and I can't wait to be part of where we are in the next 30. I don't just work with numbers, I use the logic and reasoning skills I learned in school to fix a wide variety of issues in conjunction with a team of people from all different backgrounds. I think the analytical skills I've learned help me daily to solve my life's problems too, and they make me a more confident and competent person. I would highly recommend engineering to anyone who's logical and half decent at school. I was an introverted punk who used to get into trouble and always got into altercations with the jocks at school. I had trouble at home and struggled with suicide and depression starting in 7th grade. One day the school counselor suggested I manage the wrestling team, which I thought was incredibly stupid at the time, but eventually talked me into it. The kids were actually very appreciative of my work and started treating me better, and the counselor, who was the wrestling coach, knew I was fairly athletic and asked me to join the team the following year. I went 14-1 my first year and felt a lot more pride in who I was. My senior year of high school ended, and with it my wrestling career. Even so, I trained like a maniac, still doing cardio and endurance training every day. One day I just didn't want to train anymore and started getting depressed again. I found out about an MMA gym nearby and walked in. 6.5 years later I'm an undefeated amateur about to go pro and have made the best friends I could have ever hoped for. I worked a string of poopy retail jobs. The day after I left my last one, a buddy called me up and asked if I needed a job. So I started installing cabinets and trim. Then on to building kitchen cabinets. 10 plus years later, I work for myself doing the above and all sorts of woodworking and custom furniture. Looking back, I wish I would have gotten into the trade sooner. Like still in high school or fresh out of school. There's a shortage of skilled trades workers out there. If you know your poop, you can eventually work for yourself and make a lot of money. Just sort of fell into it. I was one of those I'm interested in helping people. types with no real direction. Wanted to be a teacher actually in college and was a psychology major. Then I took an intro behavior analysis course and was enamored, amazed, hook, line, and sinker. For my electives, I took the more advanced ABA courses and got a part-time job doing in-home ABA with developmentally disabled kids. When my husband and I wanted to move out of our home state after marriage, I found a job in the field and played hardball and got a good salary. I slowly worked my way up the food chain. After 10 years, that company went to poop and I was recommended for a job at a non-profit as a director that I now love. Not sure how I ended up here, just a little bit at a time. No grand plan, just one thing led to another. I wanted to do stop motion animation since I was a little kid. As I got older I tried to open up to other related options, storyboarding, concept artist, even went as far as to consider being an art therapist, but my mind always went right back to stop motion. Eventually I decided to just go for it. My reasoning was I don't have the energy to spread myself into several different options. To try and get a job in one of them, I'd have a better chance of getting what I actually want if I'm all in. I think I was right. So far, it's actually working for me. I loved writing, but I was also good at STEM. A teacher sat me down and made me decide which subjects to pursue beyond GCSE on the spot, making a point to emphasize how much the future is going to revolve around STEM. I always figured, I can still write in my free time. 15 years later, I've never written more than 20,000 words on a project and I fucking hate my job as a chemist. Take it from someone who will probably never be happy. Do what you want. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. It's better to follow a dream than to never know. You might blow it, you might suck out loud, but at least you won't meander through life wondering what if. I took some time to myself in front of a sheet of paper and wrote down all career paths that inspired me and branched them in order of study paths or available contacts to get straight to it. By the end I narrowed it down to a single choice and stuck to it. Have to say that I'm happy of how it turned out. Maybe very plain as an advice, but to me, it was a good point to start. I wanted a job that wouldn't force me to compromise my moral and ethical code. I want to make a difference, and I'm passionate about protecting the natural and cultural resources of my state and nation. Sure, I get paid in smiles and sunsets, but I can sleep at night and I get paid to teach city slickers how to interact with the outdoors. So park ranger it is. There are decent opportunities to advance, so one day I'll be able to live more comfortably. Either way, YOLO. I was 17, going through depression and anxiety for so many years. Was admitted to a psychiatric ward 2 weeks before my high graduation. A social worker solidified my thoughts on becoming a mental health social worker. She wasn't the typical adult who would dismiss your feelings. She helped me get through the stay at the psych ward and reminded me that I had the will to make my life more beautiful. I'm 20 now with an associate's degree, got into my local university under the Southwestern program. Things are way better now in comparison to 3 years ago. I have no regrets and I wouldn't trade my ambitions for social work for anything else. I studied biochemistry because my high school chemistry teacher suggested it. I grew to love it and eventually majored in bioinformatics because I was pretty good at a programming course we got our first year. I felt I should exploit that skill. When looking for a job as a bioinformatician, a recruiter didn't understand what bioinformatics meant and sent my CV to a bunch of it companies. One of them convinced me to start as a business intelligence consultant, which is basically just it. PL/SQL, system administration, DevOps, etc. Sometimes still miss working in research, but I'm good at it, and I've grown to love it. Never really knew what I wanted to do, but for both my studies and my job it sounded interesting and somebody suggested I do it, so I did. I knew I liked science in general, and in high school I learned about telomeres and genetics and thought it sounded cool, so I entered college as a biochemistry major. After my freshman year, I took 2 biochem lab jobs over the summer running DNA gels and stuff, and hated both of them. This wasn't going to work out. I found medical things interesting as well, so during my sophomore year I got a job with a tissue donor service to see if I could handle corpses and basic medical procedure. I could, but didn't really see myself doing it for long. So the summer after sophomore year, I got a job as a kennel assistant in a vet hospital and volunteered at a wildlife care association. I loved both of them. I moved up to technician assistant and nursery supervisor respectively, busted out an animal science minor on top of my biochem degree for my junior and senior years, then applied to vet school. Now I'm a vet. So my advice is, try out things that sound interesting until you find your passion.